the expired president of Ukraine. What new challenges has the disillusioned West prepared for a country with deserted streets?
The population has either fled, died, or is hiding somewhere.
The death of Iran's president and the assassination attempt on Slovakia's prime minister. Fatal coincidences or a pattern?
100% political motives.
The USA hides nothing. Neither about Biden's competence nor the study of nuclear strike consequences.
I don't know why you're all so surprised by Trump. He's proven many times that we can't be trusted.
Boeing planes are no longer considered reliable. The corporation has serious problems, and already 2 sudden deaths of engineers.
The only option is to run. I felt like I was in hell.
Eurovision, a contest won by LGBT activism and now satanic occultism. This is the Trends program. We begin. Zelensky's presidential term has ended. Of course, he has no intention of leaving. The praised Western standards of power transition, adherence to legal principles of democracy, etc. And so on. This is now a fairy tale for the naive, officially demonstrated by Ukraine. It's clear that this state turned out to be a bubble inflated by the West. It took 2 years of the special military operation for the sobering to begin. Human rights do not apply in Ukraine. People are caught on the streets like animals to be sent to the front. The West categorically ignores this. Blinken, who visited Kyiv on the contrary, between visiting cafes and karaoke, says more mobilization is needed. Meanwhile, the mobilization law that came into force has emptied the streets. Men are hiding at home. This is a European country that doesn't let its citizens leave. The Western world, which doesn't see this and seems soon to start returning escaped Ukrainians to the front, is clearly not okay. However, it doesn't need another Ukraine.
10 a.m. May 18th.
Watching.
Lots of people. Lots of people.
The mobilization law came into force in Ukraine, and the streets of its cities literally emptied. In the first days, it was a trend to film this emptiness. But wait, Kyiv.
No one. You don't see anyone in Kyiv at all. Can you imagine?
No one will be let in. That's it, and women are walking, you see? Even Ukrainian journalists couldn't talk to potential draftees, as shown in local TV reports. Now, all those liable for military service must update their data within 2 months or face a wide range of penalties. Loss of driving licenses, fines, possible asset seizures, and account deductions. Failure to appear after receiving a summons results in criminal liability. On TV, deputies are outraged that people choose prison over the front. People can be understood. There's no way out of the armed forces, but there is from prison. The expired president with lapsed powers, Zelensky, blames the whole world for what's happening. In the first hours of his legitimacy disappearing, a petition appeared proposing to issue him a summons, but it was quickly removed. The West, faced with this legal dilemma, seems to ignore it. There are more important matters. A Swiss publication claims its population supports the return of 11,000 men to Ukraine. There's information that the EU is introducing new rules for the stay of Ukrainian citizens in the EU. An interesting paradox. Ukraine's allies are almost ready to deport escaped conscripts, while countries like Hungary oppose handing over their citizens to Ukraine. Because it essentially means sending them to their deaths. So, who is more humane here?
The country is in ruins. The country is poor. The country is ravaged, meaning the population has either fled, died, or is hiding in basements. Hiding. You tell me that you have a genetic love for freedom, that you make all these sacrifices for freedom. Freedom, that's what they tell me. They say you Russians, you are born slaves. You don't understand us. But we Ukrainians are born free people. Guys, please tell me, if you are born free, why are you being dragged by your feet? You resist, scream, but are grabbed on the streets and dragged by your feet into the meat grinder. You are free. You live in a free country.
The pandemic of disappearing Ukrainian men from the streets is a consequence of the lack of human rights in the independent country. It's a disabled function. People are literally caught for the front. Military recruiters are on duty near store entrances, at building entrances. Even the disabled are sent to slaughter. People are fleeing the country en masse, risking their lives. The 30th drowned man was found in the Tisa River. A Ukrainian tried to swim to Romania, escaping forced mobilization.
Well, it's interesting. The idea itself is interesting. They created a country, seemingly, although independence just fell on their heads. And immediately after that, they started dreaming of how to leave this supposedly independent country, either individually or collectively through European integration. How are you? Were you let into Europe? Everything is good now? How is Europe helping you?
In the Lviv region, a guy running from military recruiters blew himself up with grenades. These are the everyday realities of a supposedly free democratic country, according to the West. Before the hostilities, Kiev cleared the information field by banning alternative and opposition TV channels, and recently stopped paying pensions to elderly people who moved to Russia. The Ukrainian crisis has taken an unfavorable turn for the USA. This is acknowledged even by the Russian opposition in exile. Kiev and the West are losing to Putin. Khodorkovsky's forecast: if nothing changes, by the end of the year Ukraine will lose Kharkiv, and by mid-next year, Odessa. Attempts were made to expand this conflict to Belarus, the Baltic states, Georgia, and Moldova, but this did not happen. The situation for the USA is such that they will try to activate all possible hotspots that they have been fueling for the last 30 years. Why did Blinken come to Kiev? Not just to say more people need to be sent to the front. And karaoke, as well as dinner with Kuleba, seems like a distraction for the public. Turning Zelensky into a pumpkin after his legitimate presidential powers expired creates interesting opportunities for radicalization. In Kiev, Blinken met with several political players, such as Poroshenko. There is a concept of returning to the Ottoman rule in Ukraine, like during the civil war of the 20th century. Many mini Zelenskys instead of one main one with their armies and ambitions. They can also be played with. The USA always does this. This tool can be used to radicalize the conflict that is striving to end. At one time, Petliura handed over control to the Poles, that is, to an external manipulator. And since the USA doesn't care about Ukraine, they will use all opportunities to realize their own interests, even if it costs Ukraine its existence. The unveiling of Western politics continues through the mouths of its best minds. The prominent political strategist Dominic Cummings, who was the chief advisor to UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson in 2019 and 2020, gave a scandalous but extremely candid interview. In it, he accused Western elites of starting the conflict in Ukraine and without diplomatic finesse, formulated the most accurate characteristics of the current moment. So, 4 quotes explaining the essence of things happening in the last couple of years. The West should not have gotten involved in this stupid situation in Ukraine and talked about Kyiv joining NATO. Russia repeatedly said not to do this. Why did we get into this stupid argument? What is all this about? About a corrupt backwater country that has no significance. In case anyone didn't understand, he's talking about Ukraine. The sanctions imposed by the West on Russia have harmed European politics more than they have affected the course of the conflict. And lastly, Western leaders have shown themselves to be nothing more than a bunch of clowns. Commenting on this is unnecessary. As they say, quoterat demonstrandum. I will only remind you that at the end of November, the head of the faction of Zelensky's party, Servant of the People, and a member of the National Security Defense and Intelligence Committee, David Arakhamia, said that the war in Ukraine could have ended in the spring of 2022. However, Boris Johnson urged Kyiv not to sign anything with Russia and just keep fighting. The still president of the USA, Joe Biden, once again demonstrated how difficult it is for him to control even his own speech. After his departure, a voluminous collection of the politician's gaffes could be compiled. This time, he made a slip, but it was essentially pure truth. During a speech to supporters and critics of Trump, Biden said that his administration cannot be trusted, which caused laughter in the hall. But he apparently didn't understand such a reaction. By the way, according to a Gallup poll, the disapproval rating of the United States as a leading global player has risen to 36%. I will remind you that earlier, the White House doctor stated that the president was diagnosed with obstructive sleep apnea, which can lead to memory impairment, decreased performance, and reduced intelligence. Joe Biden's incompetence is a frequent topic in the West. At the end of this speech, the oldest president in American history once again went to shake hands with emptiness, as he has been repeatedly seen doing before. How I love Donald Trump. But I hope he loses the election, because then we will never hear new comedic stand-ups from Joe Biden again. Just listen to his latest joke about how Joe Biden's administration cannot be trusted.
I don't know why you're all so surprised by Trump. He's already proven many times that we can't be trusted.
How much longer can we hear Trump's proof that Biden can't be trusted?
I don't know. This can go on forever, and that's why they try to sue this guy every single day. Just because if Trump doesn't go to jail, he'll damn well get rid of Biden.
However, the depth of the USA's problems has long gone beyond discussing the oddities of its political elites. Entire sectors of the economy are in serious crisis. One of them is aircraft manufacturing. The Boeing Corporation is on the brink of collapse due to its inability to fulfill orders for long-range passenger planes. The very ones that make up 98% of the corporation's current order portfolio. The reason is the USA's international policy. All modern passenger planes are equipped with a nitrogen gas generation system. It prevents the formation of explosive fuel-air mixtures. Without it, the air supply and conditioning system in the cabin doesn't work. The main mechanical component of the system is heat exchangers. They are made in Russia. After the USA imposed sanctions on Russia, supplies stopped. It turns out no one else makes them on an industrial scale except for sanctioned Russia. And now witnesses in the court case about Boeing defects have started dying suddenly. Some think this is very American. Our next material is about Western import substitution and critical mistakes of giants.
One of the largest aircraft manufacturing corporations, whose products were respected even by world leaders, is disappearing from the radar of civil transportation. They're working in the wrong country. The USA's harsh sanctions policy affects both production and demand. China, as part of retaliatory measures, has already included this company in the list of unreliable organizations. We're talking about Boeing. It is now banned from trading with Beijing and making new investments in the country. A blow to the production capacities of the aviation giant also came from Moscow. It turned out that Boeing cannot fulfill the plan for producing the 787 Dreamliner. They couldn't establish the production of important parts, heat exchangers, in the required volumes. Previously, they were supplied from Russia, from a joint American-Russian enterprise. After the start of the special
2015 году я рассказал о хаосе на производстве, неэффективной культуре безопасности и ужасной работе государственных органов по расследованию двух авиакатастроф. Мир был потрясен, узнав о текущих проблемах с качеством продукции Boeing. И я не удивлен, потому что после двух авиакатастроф ничего не изменилось. Ни один сотрудник не попал в тюрьму. Сотни людей погибли, а правосудие так и не восторжествовало. Если не будут приняты меры и руководители не будут привлечены к ответственности, каждый человек, поднимающийся на борт самолета Boeing, подвергается риску. Пример смелости продемонстрировал и репортер Аль-Джазиры. Со скрытой камерой спросил рабочих Боинга, полетели бы они сами на тех самолетах, что собирают.
It's as if I've been to hell, considering my past. Now, at 3 in the morning, I feel like someone is stabbing me with a knife. Boeing management denies everything. No harassment, just some employees with overactive imaginations and loose tongues. According to security, the administration deals with rumor-mongering staff intensively but politely. However, the American airline has billion-dollar contracts for more important and profitable products, military aircraft. This allows them not only to silence dissenters, but also to act with impunity. They say you can't step into the same river twice.
Once, Secretary of State Colin Powell, who has passed away, showed a vial of chemical weapons at the UN to justify U.S. aggression against Iraq. It turned out to be a complete fake. Most likely, it was laundry detergent. Saddam Hussein had no chemical weapons, but Iraq was bombed. Now, the Israeli ambassador to the UN during the General Assembly recalled the vial trick and shredded the UN Charter. The thing is, the UN overwhelmingly voted to grant Palestine membership. "143 votes in favor, 9 against, 25 abstentions. The US and its allies will likely block this decision in the Security Council. Nothing new in this world. The UN has become a place where people sit, talk, and achieve nothing. Thank you, Mr. President. What is this about? What is declared as justice for all turns out to be collusion and manipulation in real politics. It's impossible to approve of the actions of pro-Palestinian radicals who slaughtered Israelis. However, in response, tens of thousands of Palestinian civilians, including children, were killed. And you can't say that those who voted against Palestine's membership in the UN, Americans, British, French, Ukrainians, Germans, Canadians, Poles, and Finns, would allow something similar if it were Russia. The outcry would be immense, but here everything seems fine. It's like a license to kill. And then there's our unparalleled Senator Lindsey Graham, who sees no barriers to Israel using nuclear weapons, for example. Astonishing.
For America, it was normal to drop 2 nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end an existential threat, the war. Was that normal for us? To me it was normal. And it's normal for Israel to do whatever it takes to survive as a Jewish state.
Another interesting and alarming news. The U.S. House of Representatives has asked the Department of Defense to provide a report on the possible consequences of a nuclear explosion in space due to the threat from Russia. That's the wording. People are preparing for a future they consider quite likely. In plain language, they want to know what the consequences would be if the US nuked Russia. Lithuania is also choosing its future. The presidential elections there didn't conclude. Well, they did, but there will be a second round. What's happening is following Ukraine's footsteps. An independent candidate who recognized Crimea as part of Russia and said NATO reduced Lithuania's security was threatened with death by Lithuanian nationalists. Naturally, he didn't make it. The Lithuanian voters' choice is programmed. It's about the pro-American, pro-NATO path.
As Vladimir Nabokov wrote on a similar occasion, elections in Lithuania are of entomological interest. You won't make any significant discoveries, just like observing butterflies. What's happening is a literal repetition of the 2019 situation. The same Nausėda and Simonite advanced to the second round, and Nausėda will win on May 26th. There's no doubt about it. The same Nausėda. The choice of the average Lithuanian is programmed. Propaganda left them no freedom of self-determination. Everyone except Simonite and Nausėda were presented as complete marginals. The current president represents the same forces that once gave Lithuania a foreign president, Adamkus, the pro-American political clan. Prime Minister Simonite is from the unsinkable Landsbergis clan, which has been pulling the strings of local politics for 30 years. It may seem exaggerated, but in Lithuania, it's about clans. Politics here is a matter of class. Outsiders are not allowed, and even less so, uncontrollable people. Nausėda appeared moderate compared to his main rival. At least he didn't demand to send Lithuanian troops to Ukraine, block Russian transit to Kaliningrad, and generally said empty but correct words. Our priority is creating a welfare state, reducing social isolation. Believe me, everything will be fine. Elections are too important to be left to the electorate. In Lithuania, this is a fundamental management principle. 20 years ago, local political clans got burned. They elected Rolandas Paksas as president, who thought his mandate came from the people. For just one attempt to sell the state oil company to the wrong buyer, the overconfident president was impeached. The formal reason was different, but everyone understood. The ousted president fought in court and even got rehabilitated, but another was already in the presidential chair and didn't step down. Control and manageability are paramount in Lithuanian politics, so it's plausible that Eduardas Savaitis appeared on the ballot.
The only supposedly pro-Russian candidate allowed to run, I suspect for intelligence purposes, to gauge the number of active pro-Russian supporters.
A fair assumption. In Lithuania, you can end up in jail for a trifle, like laying flowers at a monument or not being enthusiastic enough about Ukraine. For the wrong answer to the question of whose Crimea is, someone else would be sent to hard labor. There's no hard labor today, but they wouldn't hesitate to create it for such a case. But Vaikas got away with it. The people of Crimea voted for Crimea to be part of Russia. And an active operation by Lithuanian intelligence revealed something alarming. 7.5% of the population is against constant confrontation with Russia. Moreover, they dared to vote for Vaikas, not hiding much. And there are secret sympathizers who were afraid to rebel, even by marking a ballot. Both the president and the prime minister immediately commented, saying measures must be taken. No doubt they will. Police and intelligence funding will increase. The good cop, Nausėda, won't be more merciful than the bad cop, Simonite, to those who want peace and good neighborliness. Essentially, voters are only allowed to want something like that.
Living in Lithuania might not be so bad, but I came from Britain and want to live in Lithuania, like in the UK. That's why I came to vote for a president who will make life in Lithuania like in the UK.
The voter who came from England to make Lithuania better has probably already bought tickets back to London for May 26th.
The real elections in Lithuania are not between Nausėda and Simonite, but between Spain, Norway, Sweden, Ireland, Germany, and other countries for labor migration.
A choice without a choice is doomed to a predictable result. In any case, the president of war will win with the slogan, "Everything for the front, everything for Ukraine's victory, no mercy." Analyzing Lithuanian political clans is a useless task for a very niche audience.
The penultimate week of May will be remembered for two extraordinary events. One of them is the strange death of the Iranian president. The helicopter might have been shot down. This version naturally floats in the air. Iran has enough enemies who would try such a move to find new points of destabilization in the Middle East. The investigation will confirm or refute this version. However, a proven story of the downing of Iran's #1 aircraft could shake their society. And again, there will be those who want to ride the wave of public anger in a controlled chaos style. Therefore, the truth about the president's death may become Iran's top state secret for now. 8 people died with him, various officials and managers. New elections must be held within 50 days. Vice President Mohammad Mokhtar will act as president of Iran. The second strange and tragic event is the attack on Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico. A 71-year-old pro-Ukrainian activist, writer, and supporter of the opposition party Progressive Slovakia fired 5 shots. The country's intelligence services officially suspect the old man didn't act alone. Meanwhile, Western journalists are already linking the shooter to the Russians. Let's discuss what people in Slovakia think about this incident with lawyer and journalist Miroslav Kamensky. Miroslav, hello! What are the theories about this incident? Could this be a warning sign? Some say it's a message from the British and Orban could be next. Or maybe the Ukrainian hysteria is driving people mad.
This isn't a lone wolf. There are definitely political motives. For Ukrainian fanaticism, aggression, and attempts to show what's behind the attack. The desire to stop Fico's sovereign policy. Familiar sources say it's not surprising to find him guilty. Some claim the writer was always strange and angry. He differed from Ukrainian views and suddenly became extremely anti-Russian. It's clear that Scintilla is an optimal target for intelligence recruitment. An unstable psyche and aggressive tendencies make it easy to push such a person in the desired direction. Those who benefit from the current situation took advantage of this. America has started a new kind of war to eliminate sovereign politicians who aren't strongly anti-Russian. Therefore, it's crucial to understand whose invisible hand guided the attacker and the long-term consequences of this provocation. I strongly condemn this treacherous act against Prime Minister Fico as an attack on democracy. Mainly, it's the result of opposition media's activities. If they hadn't bombarded the public with one-sided opinions and lies, people would have more objective information, and such sentiments wouldn't exist. This is an attack not only on Slovakia, but also on Slovak-Russian relations. Will the country's course towards Russia change? I'm convinced Slovakia's course towards Russia won't change. Parliamentary elections in Slovakia were held on September 30th, 2023. Unless the opposition stages a coup, Slovakia's course won't change. In April 2024, a month ago, Prime Minister Fico announced that Slovakia would block Ukraine's NATO requires unanimous consent from all 32 member countries. As Fico said, Slovakia needs a neutral Ukraine. He has said this many times. Fico said our interests would be threatened if Ukraine became a NATO member, as it could lead to a major world war. He called it World War III. America has started a new kind of war. They began eliminating sovereign politicians who aren't anti-Russian. America wants to change the world's development. You know, the attempts on Erdogan, the assassination attempt on a Saudi Arabian representative, the attempt on Vučić, the attempt on Fico. What is this? These are all politicians who wanted to be sovereign in their countries.
Thank you. That was Miroslav Kamensky with his opinion on the assassination attempt on Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico. If you think about it, Slovakia is one of the European countries opposing modern EU trends. LGBT, democratic bombings, and other things. And you know, what's happening with the Eurovision Song Contest is a good mirror showing the history of, if not degradation, then democracy. A significant change in Europe and the Western world over the last half-century. 10 years ago, once, Toto Cutugno, Julio Iglesias, and Celine Dion sang in it. And they had songs. Today, it's very difficult to remember Eurovision music. There are no hits at all, for many years now. But you can't unsee the modern participants, even if you want to. What is Eurovision without Russia and Belarus? What happens when politics takes precedence over music? The 2024 festival is called the most scandalous and talentless in history. First about politics. It even slipped into the lyrics and staging of performances. Signal lights for Ukraine, a prayer for help. Well, the same things the authorities in Kiev are doing. But let's focus on the performer from Israel. Her example shows how unwanted artists are removed if necessary. The discrepancy between the audience and jury scores for Israel was maximally opposite. Hence, the strong divergence in bookmakers' predictions. Some believe Israel was deliberately judged unfairly. Ukraine and Croatia were the only countries that didn't give Israel a single point. The Netherlands even disqualified them right before the final. And no one admits what exactly for. It turned out that countries like Moldova, without the traditional support points from Belarus and Russia, are destined for the last places. Now the agenda. Eurovision as a parade of freaks is not news for the last 20 years. However, it wasn't so blatant. Today on this stage, they demonstrate sodomy as an attribute, borderline behavior, men in thongs doing openly indecent things. Britain unpleasantly surprised with a performance that was dubbed a simulation of sodomy in a public toilet. The audience's reaction was pleasantly surprising, giving this performer 0 points. However, this is a drop of honey in a large barrel of tar. There were plenty of other similar acts. Spoiler alert, A Man in a Skirt won. This year, the usual theme of non-traditional values was joined by occult motifs. They were present in many performances. However, the singer from Ireland stood out the most, calling herself a witch and a non-binary person simultaneously. Her performance was a true satanic ritual. The symbol of the devil, a pentagram, summoning a demon. Interestingly, the Irish participant ranked 6th in the audience vote, 6th in the jury vote, and 6th overall. So she collected 3 sixes. All that's left is to conduct a sacrifice live on air, and you can rename the contest to Devil Vision or Satan Vision. The winner was a guy from Switzerland. Also, it turns out, a non-binary person in a skirt and a pink fur coat. This is how he looked before, but it didn't help him win contests. But now it does. The guy even managed to break the crystal microphone, Eurovision's main trophy. The telefestival perfectly shows the degree of the EU's degradation. If blatant Satanism and depravity are just decor and toys for many there, one can endlessly wonder how the cradle of Europe's talented classical composers turned into something like this. But the most important thing to remember is that when you're invited to a cannibal party, it's not certain you're not the dinner. You get what you asked for. Belgium introduced fines for sex workers, but not for prostitution itself, but for refusing a client. More than 10 times in 6 months. The reason for this measure is too many turndowns. Recently, this European country adopted a revolutionary law for sex workers. Their rights are now regulated by an employment contract. Intimate service workers can receive annual paid leave, have the right to maternity leave, unemployment benefits, and health insurance. They also accrue pensions for years of service. However, besides rights, brothel workers will also have obligations, and refusing sex can be considered a breach of the employment contract. The innovations do not apply to web channels. I'm curious, is this profession offered to the unemployed at the job center in Belgium? If a woman refuses the offered vacancy twice, is her unemployment benefit cancelled? Apparently, there are no more important issues in Belgium. This was the program Trends. All the best to you.